Hey everyone. So I almost didn't do this. And I've rescheduled it and I've started over, and I really kind of have been resistant of hosting this tonight because, to be completely transparent, grief has been showing up in very weird ways. And I don't necessarily know what to do with it. But what I do know is that I'm not the only one walking through that. So here we are. So I guess let's take a breath. Let's be awkward if it is, and realize that this is actually grounding in a space. I actually grabbed essential oil blend called Forgive for this meeting. Can't quite tell if I'm trying to find forgiveness myself or William, or situations that led up to his death. But here we are. As awkward as it is, here we are. So let's start out with something simple and impossible. If you had one more minute with someone that you lost, what's one thing you'd say? You know, what's interesting is that there's really no right or wrong answer for that. We've been talking about grief this week in our social media feeds, in the Mighty Networks group, and I'm still trying to figure out what to say. And I don't know if I'm supposed to say anything at all or anything different, or if I just don't know how to listen. You know, last night, I rebranded the website to get ready for our first grassroots donation campaign and to get excited and geared up. And it was so bizarre. I was in my room on my laptop, and all of a sudden I noticed this smell that I associate with William now, because it is the smell of what his home smelled like that went after we had to clean it up. And we brought back, Bibles and books, and so kind of a older smell. This is one of them, and this smell became a little bit more obvious. And true disclosure, I had to clean our mattress and with some different chemicals, and so it was likely just that, but it was so prevalent that I actually stopped what I was doing and started speaking to William as if he was with me. And then in the other room, one of the grandkids' toys started to go off, and it was this very repetitive phrase that the toy would say, and then it would stop. And nobody was in there playing with the toy. So it really was just a moment of freak out for me. And so finally it started again. And of course, I'm having this moment like, oh, what is happening? And I walk into the room and I get these cold chills down my leg. And I go to the toy and I turn it off and I just become in this headspace of just fear. But it was so bizarre because I thought, if that was really William, what am I scared to say? Why am I scared to see him again? I think if I had one more chance, one more minute to speak to him on the phone the night before the night he died, actually. I spoke to him that night. I'm not 100% sure it would change anything. But what I probably would have done was change the behavior and the responses for the 6 months leading up to it if I would have known. And that's what's so hard with people and families suffering from, loved ones that are dealing with addiction, is that truthfully, there's no timeline as to when the fatal overdose is going to happen, when the rock bottom that we talked about last week is going to happen. When is that timeline going to happen? Because fortunately, I think for our own lives, we don't have that fortune telling experience. But I think one of the most profound reasons that I created Lift the Veil was because I want families to have more awareness of those transitional periods. Sorry, the sunlight is quite interesting right now, but I want people to have more awareness of when their loved one shifts, of when behaviors change, of when patterns change, and how to show up differently, how to show up with compassion, how to show up with awareness and understanding, and be able to lean in more rather than to lean out. You certainly don't have to share if you don't want to, but if you do want to say something that you've never said out loud before, this is a good place to do it. You can certainly put it in the comments. You can share it in our group chat and discussion board. There's a lot of ways. Or just get a journal and write it down. Say it out loud. Say it out loud as if they're in front of you. Because walking through the last several months of grief, I have developed a new relationship with myself. I've developed a new relationship with God. I have developed a new relationship with other family members that have lost, just like I have. What I will say is that grief is something that can't be fixed. A colleague of mine shared with me after William died the experiences that she's had. She lost her son when he was a baby. And she said something so beautiful that just has sat with me, that grief is like this big hole. And in the beginning, it's jagged and sharp and raw. And anytime it's touched or looked at or acknowledged, it just becomes this overwhelming experience. And I certainly think that I'm still in that phase. But she said over time, and I believe that she's been in this loss now for well over 10 years with her son passing, that the hole just gets less jagged and less sharp. So when memories come up, it becomes less painful and less raw. And I hope that's true. I hope that over time, I certainly don't want to forget. And that was probably one of the biggest things that she said to me, was that, interestingly enough, the hole never goes away. And that she actually, I don't think enjoy was the word, but she actually accepts the whole more, the grief whole more, because it still brings her connection to her son. You know, I've learned along this process, and the reason why Mighty Networks Group was created and this entire nonprofit organization, Lift the Veil, was created, is that I really don't even have to understand and have a full grasp on addiction or grief to hold space for others. I just have to be real with myself. And hopefully, even though this is extremely hard, I show up anyway. I show up for myself, I show up for William, and I show up for every family that is going through or has gone through what ours has. In a ultimate goal to prevent this loss, even if it's just one family. So if you want to write about it, I definitely, if you want to write about your own grief story, I would love to hold space for you. We have a discussion thread, we have a discussion board within our Mighty Networks community. If you want to honor William's memory with a red bracelet, somebody else's memory, you can certainly share that. Our website shows you how to do that. And if you just want to keep coming back and being a part of the group, whether or not you're a loud member or you're a silent member, please keep coming back. We're here for you, for us. Thank you.